Hello, friends. This is my first Facebook Live. Woohoo! I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for taking a little break with me. We are going to spend a little bit of time together talking about my two favorite topics, which are, other than my children, business and mindset. I often say in my $1 Million Women Masterclass or with my coaching clients that you can't build a mansion on quicksand. And what that means is if you don't have a good solid foundation for your mindset, you can't start building this multi-million-dollar successful business because you will undermine yourself, you'll self-sabotage, stuff will start going wrong and you won't know why. So that's something I'm really fascinated with, especially after writing $1 Million Women and talking to women all over the world who are taking their businesses big. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be here every Thursday at 3 p.m. I hope you'll take breaks with me every Thursday. And we are going to switch back and forth for the next 10 weeks. Can't promise after 10 weeks, but the next 10 weeks I'm doing this. We're going to switch back and forth between business and mindset. So today is all about business because I just went to this amazing Scale Up Summit in New Orleans. Some of you might have seen it in my Instagram feed. And it was a summit for people scaling up their businesses from 5 million to 50 million to 500 million. Vern Harnish organizes it. He's the author of Scaling Up and the founder of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And he was kind enough to invite me, and I got to hear from some of the best, most cutting-edge authors of business books. And I found two that I wanted to share with you today. Because if you're here, I'm going to bet that you are building your empire, and I want to help you do that. So stick with me, and you'll always learn something. The format will be that I will always share at least one business book. Today I'm going to share two. And I know that when I was building my business Little Pim up, I really wished that I could read business books like in the time it took to do a shot. Like it just took too much time to read all these business books. But I do love books. As you can see behind me, I am just an avid business book reader. I probably read about 20 or 30 of them a year and maybe 10 books on mindset. So I'm really excited to share them with you. But I know you don't have a lot of time either. You're busy. So I am going to share books with you in the time it takes to do a shot. All right, well, maybe not exactly in the time it takes to do a shot, but it won't be like a tall vanilla macchiato. It'll be more like a cortada, if you know what that is. So that's my promise to you. You'll get great business learning and in a short period of time. So with that, let's see who's joining us today. Do we have some folks? Hey, Corey. So nice to see some friendly faces. I'm going to be taking some questions later on after I share the two business books. And if you're watching this on repeat, feel free to reach out anytime via any of my social media channels if you have questions that I didn't answer today in this live video broadcast. So let's see, are we ready for the first book? I think we are, so that means it's time to take a shot. Laura, my chief of staff, has kindly prepared a shot for me, and we made a deal that I won't know what the shot is every week so that there'll be a little element of surprise. I was a little nervous because Laura is from Mexico originally. I was like, no tequila for the first shot, please. I know that's tempting, especially because it's in a Barcelona glass. But let's see what it is. Am I allowed to smell it first, or do I just have to drink it? I just have to shoot it back. All right, l'chaim. That was not grape juice. It was purple, but it was not grape juice. All right, here we go. That was wine. And not Manischewitz. It's pretty good, actually. All right, so let's start with $1 Million Women. Well, my book is $1 Million Women. This is the million. See, the wine. That was your fault. I don't even know the name of my own book anymore. No, this book is by a wonderful author named Elaine Pofelt, who I had known online but had the pleasure of meeting when I was down at the Scale Up Summit in New Orleans. And she wrote the book, The $1 Million One-Person Business. And I know that when I first read about her book, I was kind of pissed off. I was like, what do you mean the $1 million one-person business? I have been coaching women across the country, building teams, to go big, don't go solo. You have to stop doing everything yourself. You have to delegate. And here she is with the $1 million one-person business. So I was a little bit concerned, but as it turns out, our messages are very, very aligned. I had a chance to talk with Elaine at the summit, and then I just devoured her book on the way home. And I highly recommend you read it if you are looking to take your business to $1 million. And by the way, who wouldn't want to have $1 million business with 0 employees, right? That sounds pretty great. Well, as it turns out, what she really is saying is that you can get to $1 million in revenues without any full-time employees, right? Got to read the fine print. Most of the people she wrote about in the book do have people working with them, whether they're contractors or part-timers, or they just outsourced everything. So let me give you an example of that so that you know what I'm talking about. There's this woman, Pamela. I won't get into last names because, you know, it's a shot. It's not a macchiato. So Pamela had this company where she was doing graphic design and helping people with media projects, marketing, promotional programs. And then what happened is on her way to work, she had a panic attack. And then she was like, and she worked for a big company for a while. And then she was like, I actually don't want to be on set anywhere. She'd done a lot of work on set. So she went home to her apartment to where she didn't have to face people and deal with her panic attacks. But this actually was what spurred her on to build a $1 million company. She's actually at $2 million now, where she had no employees. So how did she do that? She basically built a network of contractors around the globe, paying very competitive rates to get the best talent. And what I think is so cool about this story is that she was forced to build a $1 million business without full-timers because it kind of made her panic. Where I find a lot of the women I coach, they actually have built a company with a lot of staff, a lot of, you know, obligations and responsibilities, and it could have been built a whole other way. It's just that they didn't conceive it that way from the beginning. And sometimes when you're forced to build a company without doing everything yourself, that actually leads to better decisions. So that's a really great example, and you can read about her in this book. Another one I like is this guy, Dan. So Dan's story is that he had a fitness training company. It was called Fitness on the Go. Yeah, I'm not only going to talk about women here, sorry, but I know most of you are women, but we have some things to learn from men too, especially when they've been written about by women. So what about Dan? So Dan had this fitness company, and he was sending trainers out. And by the way, if you're just joining us, I'm giving some examples of people who built $1 million businesses without hiring any full-time employees from this great book. Thank you, Elaine, for sharing all these cool stories. So what Dan did was he had all these trainers going out and training people, so fairly traditional business model, and he would pay them, and they worked for him. But he found that, one, they weren't that motivated. Two, they sometimes behaved in ways he wasn't super psyched about, like they would ask to take a shower at their clients' homes. What? And his margins weren't even that great. And sometimes they built relationships with the clients and then would walk out with the clients. If any of you have services businesses, you might have had experiences like that. So what he decided to do was completely change his business model. And I love his flexibility here. Although first he got so frustrated he almost gave up. So if any of you are feeling like that, don't feel bad, because sometimes that is what forces you to actually try something super different, right? You know I love quotes. I'm a quote junkie. And one of them I love is, just when the moth, no, how's it go? Just when the caterpillar thought it would die, it became a butterfly. So just when you think you're like, whoa, this thing is not working at all, that's when you might be able to make your biggest, best move and completely transform your business into something more scalable and profitable. So here's what Dan did. He started over his entire business model. I love that. And he used a franchise licensing model. So he started licensing the right to use the company's brand to individual trainers. And that meant everybody was super motivated. They were licensing from him a platform that he built. And now he has 180 personal trainers, and it's a $4 million business. Plus it has very high profit margins. And he doesn't have to worry about people asking to take showers in his clients' bathrooms anymore. So that worked out pretty well. Anyway, I highly recommend you read this book because she covers every type of company, from product to services. Sometimes it can be hard to find books that help you figure out how to scale as a services business. Everything's so much about tech and fundraising these days. What if you just have a really cool business that you want to scale without raising any money, or building tech? Elaine's got you covered. So thank you, Elaine. And I'm going to just pause a minute before I move on to the next one, because then we're going to talk about strategic partnerships and see if you guys have any questions. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Corey. Hi, Kate. Hey, Carol. Let's see if you guys have any questions about building a $1 million one-person business. Wonder if any of you are doing that right now. Like you have 0 employees and you're planning on getting to $1 million that way, or 0 full-time employees, I should say. Chat me if that's what you're doing, if that's your plan, or even if you'd like to do that. Let's see. Love this topic. Thanks, Carol. Maybe you'll be one of them. Another thing she talks about while I'm waiting for you guys to write in is that any business of any kind can do this. It's not just for tech, it's not just for products or services, but it does require being really, really flexible. So one of the quotes that she has that I love is she says, always be looking to figure out what people are doing that you can adopt in your business. Just be extremely flexible. And so she says, what are the top 5% of successful companies implementing today? Like your competition or people in parallel fields, and how can I implement that too? What if you just ask yourself that question every day, right? What are the top 5% of successful companies implementing, and how can I implement that too? That is a great question. That should go on a Post-it on your computer, and every day pause for 10 minutes and look at what everyone else is doing and say, hey, why aren't I doing that? So often we're just running on that entrepreneur's hamster wheel. You know what I'm talking about. And we don't take the time to work on the business. But you're here, so you are working on the business, so bravo. And let me see if I have any questions. Hey, Yannick, Corey, how much does that book discuss the franchising licensing model? Well, she has at least 2 examples of that, and people who either did it from scratch or, like Dan's story, had a different model and then started over. Because I know that's something you've been considering for your business, Corey, so I'm sure you'd find something in here for you. And those of you who have taken my masterclass know that when we do the strategy module, we always start with looking at business models of other companies, not just in our own space, but in parallel spaces. Because as I always like to say, what you sell should be unique, but how you sell it does not have to be. And I see too many entrepreneurs running around trying to create some incredibly elaborate, original way of selling their products or services, when in fact there are really great tried and true business models out there that they can use and take all that energy and put it into just nailing your market, being the best at what you do, and finding, your sweet spot for your services. All right, let's see. I like the idea of growing without raising money, says Shannon. We are able to charge up front, which helps. Any additional suggestions for how to think in those terms? Well, funny you should ask. That is the perfect bridge to the Sumo Advantage, because our next book is about strategic partnerships, which is a great way to grow your business without having to seek financing. So I'm going to get into that now. Hi, Randa. Welcome. Hey, Kathy. So the Sumo Advantage is a book about business development. And the very first point that Bernie Brenner makes, I heard him speak at the Scale Up Summit too. And if you're just joining us, I got to go to this amazing summit called Scale Up, where we had top business authors from around the country presenting their books. And these are the 2 that stood out the most for me, for my community, you guys, looking to get to $1 million in revenues. So what he writes about in the Sumo Advantage is finding a partner who can help you exponentially grow your revenues without you having to raise money. It's sometimes called a strategic partnership, or it could be called, a win-win partnership. People have all kinds of terms for this. He calls it a sumo because he says, it's like a sumo wrestler, right? Who's got this heft and they make one move and they can move anything. So if you find the right sumo, you can have these amazing results. He calls it, sumo, but it's really business development, right? And he says, business development is about taking the assets or capabilities of 2 or more companies, yours and the Sumo, and combining them to create a third, even more valuable asset. So let me give you an example of this. When we were running Little Pim, my language teaching company, we were helping kids 0 to 6 learn a foreign language through a multimedia series. We were approached by a language teaching company that helped adults learn a second language. They were also with digital products, but they were selling to libraries around the country. And they had really cornered that market of public libraries, multi-million-dollar business. But the librarians had started saying to them, well, we have all these kids coming into the library, and we'd like them to be able to learn a foreign language. What do you have for them? And they said, nada. They didn't have anything. So they approached us at Little Pim and said, what if we created together a language teaching program for kids that could go into public libraries? So we teamed up, we used our IP and our expertise and our knowledge of how kids learn, and we used their platform and their method of language instruction and created Little Pim for Libraries, which then turned into a huge revenue source for Little Pim and still is to this day. So that's a great example of finding a much bigger, more successful company that's already embedded in a market where your product or service could go, and creating a product or service together that could capture that market share. think I have some questions coming in. So Shannon, you were saying any additional suggestions, how to think in those terms. Right, so an alternative to raising money is to finding a partner where you get such massive benefit from partnering up that it brings a whole new cash flow into your business. While these questions are coming in, I'll give one more example from Little Pim, which is that we approached PBS, which at the time was really the leader in the early kids space, and we said, what are you doing to teach kids a foreign language? They had this big gaming platform they had just built called PBS Kids Play, and kids could learn to read and do math and spell and do all kinds of cool things. I met them at a trade show, and Little Pim was pretty early days at that point. We're maybe year 2 or 3. We certainly were not at $1 million in revenues and looking for revenue streams. And they didn't have a foreign language plan. Again, nada, right? So I said, hey, we've got this language teaching method. How about if we create a game for your platform? It was a huge win-win because we created a game, it went on their platform, and what we got out of it, in addition to revenue, was we were able to put a sticker on every single one of our DVDs. I know, I'm dating myself. Kids were really watching DVDs back then. And we put those DVDs in retail. It really helped us to open up retail accounts. So we sold to Barnes & Noble. We sold to Babies R Us. We were in retail outlets across the country, in part because we had this extra validity that it was as seen on PBS. So those are just a couple of examples of finding Sumos who can really help you raise the visibility of your company and also bring in additional revenues. Wow, I can feel that wine. Laura, I'm going to get you back for this. It was not tequila, but it was wine, and it's 3. Okay, let's see. I'm part French, right? I should be able to handle this. We have wine with lunch all the time. Okay, what else? Oh, thanks, Carol. Kathy. Oh, Kathy says strategic partnerships are how I got to the point I'm at. So cool. Would you write in for the other folks like one example of that? I'm sure they'd love to learn from you what you did. Hey, Caitlin. You are launching Bink-A-Bear on Kickstarter. Oh my God, so cool. Let's see, to fund our first PO. So you'd love to hear any tips or thoughts on people you need to on your team to fund our first large PO. Well, here's what I did in the early days of Little Pim when I couldn't yet afford really high-level staffers. I found consultants who had a really great track record in their field, and I hired them just part-time, but really in order to help open up their Rolodexes and get introductions. So we had a wonderful woman named Peggy Intrator, and if she's watching, hey Peggy. She had great contacts in the publishing world, and at the time, publishing was one of the big outlets. Now I don't think that's where we'd be going. With Little Pim, it'd probably be more like Netflix and Hulu would be our first stop. But she got us in the door at a number of big publishing companies, and that's part of how we got our book deal. That's part of how we got our first big order for Barnes & Noble. So I would recommend going to the people in your field who are already door openers rather than trying to kick those doors open yourself. It can be so hard to get in the door when you are new and no one knows who you are. So that would be my top recommendations. Find someone who is a door opener and team up with them. Let's see if I have any other questions coming in. Okay, I'm going to give another example from Sumo because he's got such great advice here. So one thing he talks about is knowing the difference between business development and sales. So sales is just all about, how can I make another sale? How can I make another sale? It's like Sisyphean, right? You're just pushing that boulder up the mountain all the time. And it never actually gives you exponential growth in a lot of cases. Whereas business development is more about long-term cultivation, something I know a little bit about as a fundraiser. And if any of you have ever raised money, you know how you don't just meet someone and say, hey, how are you? Will you write a check for my organization? No, that never works. You have to get to know them. You have to go to lunch. You have to invite them to something. So here's a couple of differences between BD and sales. So BD is strategic, not transactional, right? Sales is transactional. Will you purchase 10 DVDs? Not, hey, PBS, let's have 10 meetings over 6 months about how we might build a game together. No direct revenue is generated when you execute a BD contract, unlike sales. So sometimes BD, you do get some revenue, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just a brand lift. Sometimes it helps you raise money. And key contacts have a full plate of tasks to attend to, and your proposed BD deal isn't on it. Meaning the people you're approaching about business development, like PBS, or maybe for you it's Netflix or Google, I don't know who it is, they're not actually looking for you. So it's going to take a while for you to get on the radar, to get those meetings, and to really stoke the fires of this business development deal that you're going to offer them. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that every single sales book or program is about getting to yes, right? It's just all about getting to yes. But business development and finding that Sumo is actually the opposite, says Bernie. It's all about not hearing no. Because as long as you're not hearing no, you are on your way to a possible yes. So that's a very different approach. And if you read the book, you'll get a really good sense of the difference between sales and business development. And you're not too small to start doing business development. We were doing it right from the get-go at Little Pim, and it actually helped us to name BD and sales separately so that we didn't confuse the two or get frustrated when things were moving too slowly with a PBS. They certainly didn't move as fast as making a sale to the toy shop down the block, right? That was like a quick turnaround. So those are just a couple of tips from that book that I hope were helpful. Let me see if I have any last little questions coming in. No. Oh, it's already past 3:20. All right, I got to go. It's a beautiful day here in New York, and I'm going to go meet up with Eloise, who just had twin girls. Some of you know her because she's a mentor in masterclass and a successful female entrepreneur, and I'm going to go take a little walk with her. So thanks for joining me. I will see you next time. And actually, if you're still with us and you want to win our book today, we are going to be giving away a book every week, $1 Million Women, sending a book to someone. Then just put in the chat your favorite mindset book, because this week was business, next week is going to be mindset. And I am really excited to share with you one of my favorite books on mindset. Some of you may have read it, The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte. Total classic and can really rock your world in terms of setting goals and getting to the feelings under those goals. So can't wait to do that next week. And if you want to win a $1 Million Women book, just tell me your favorite book on mindset, which even if you don't want to win a $1 Million Women book, I would love to know what it is, because I'm a bit of a mindset book junkie. All right, ladies, so nice to have you with me today. Thank you for taking a break with me, and I'll see you next week at 3, if not before that, on social media somewhere. L'chaim, bye, enjoy your day, and stay brave.